Most people have been taught that belly fat is simply the result of eating too much and not exercising enough, but that's not how the body actually works. The idea that weight gain is purely a matter of calories in versus calories out is an outdated model that ignores how your hormones control fat storage and fat burning. Your body is not a simple calculator, it's a complex biochemical system that responds differently to different types of food. When you eat, your body releases certain hormones depending on what you consume, and these hormones determine whether your body stores fat or burns it. The key player in this process is insulin, the fat-storing hormone. When insulin levels are elevated, your body cannot burn fat efficiently, no matter how few calories you consume. So the real issue behind belly fat isn't how much you eat. It's what your hormones are doing, especially insulin. Insulin has an important job. Its main role is to lower blood sugar levels by moving glucose into your cells, but it also acts as a storage hormone. When insulin is high, it tells your body to store nutrients as fat and to hold onto existing fat. That means if your insulin levels are constantly elevated, your body is locked in fat storage mode. You could be eating small meals all day, counting every calorie, and still find it impossible to lose that stubborn belly fat because insulin is preventing fat breakdown. When insulin is low, however, your body switches into fat burning mode and starts using stored fat for energy. This is why two people can eat the same number of calories but have completely different results because their hormonal responses are not the same. Now, what causes high insulin levels? The biggest trigger is frequent eating and consumption of refined carbohydrates and sugar. Every time you eat, insulin rises. It doesn't matter if it's a small snack, a handful of nuts, or a healthy protein bar, your body still responds by producing insulin. If you eat 3 meals a day and snack between them, insulin remains elevated almost all the time. Add to that the hidden sugars in foods like cereals, dressings, sauces, and beverages, and you end up with a situation where your insulin is constantly spiked. Over time, this leads to a condition called insulin resistance, where your cells stop responding effectively to insulin. The pancreas compensates by producing even more insulin, and that keeps your body stuck in a fat-storing state, particularly around the abdomen. The location of fat also matters. Belly fat is a sign that insulin resistance has taken hold. It's not just extra energy storage, it's a signal of a deeper hormonal imbalance. Unlike subcutaneous fat that sits under the skin, belly fat is mostly visceral fat that surrounds your organs. This type of fat releases inflammatory chemicals that further worsen insulin resistance and increase cortisol, the stress hormone. The more belly fat you have, the more inflammation your body produces, creating a vicious cycle of hormonal disruption and fat accumulation. You can't fix this cycle by cutting calories because the issue isn't the quantity of energy. It's the quality of your metabolism and how efficiently your body can use energy. The good news is that when you start focusing on balancing hormones rather than counting calories, your metabolism begins to correct itself. Reducing your eating frequency is one of the most effective ways to lower insulin. Intermittent fasting works because it allows insulin levels to drop low enough for fat burning to begin. When you go several hours without eating, your body switches from burning glucose to burning stored fat. Pair that with a low-carbohydrate, high-fat diet, and your insulin levels stay consistently low. Healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, coconut oil, and nuts don't spike insulin, while foods high in refined carbs do. The same goes for protein. Moderate amounts support muscle and metabolism, but too much can still raise insulin slightly. The goal is balance. It's also important to realize that cutting calories without addressing insulin can backfire. When you reduce calories drastically, your metabolism slows down, your hunger hormones increase, and your energy drops. Your body perceives starvation and responds by holding on to fat even more tightly. But when you lower insulin naturally, your body feels safe to release stored fat because it's finally able to access it for fuel. This is why people who switch to intermittent fasting or a low-carb lifestyle often say they can eat satisfying meals, feel full, and still lose fat without counting anything. They're working with their hormones, not against them. Belly fat isn't a willpower issue or a lack of discipline. It's a sign that your hormones are out of balance, primarily insulin. Once you stop thinking in terms of calories and start thinking in terms of hormonal control, everything changes. The body becomes efficient, hunger normalizes, cravings fade, and energy increases. The truth is that calories don't determine fat storage, insulin does. Lower insulin, and the fat-burning switch turns on automatically. Insulin is the master regulator of body fat, especially around the midsection, and it plays a much bigger role in weight gain than most people realize. When you consume food, particularly carbohydrates and sugar, your blood sugar rises. In response, your pancreas releases insulin to move that sugar into your cells, where it can be used for energy. But insulin doesn't just lower blood sugar, it also tells your body to store fat. When insulin levels are high, fat burning shuts off completely. It's like a switch: insulin up, fat burning off, insulin down, fat burning on. So even if you are eating fewer calories, if your insulin remains high, your body will not burn fat efficiently. Instead, it will continue to store fat, especially around the abdomen, where insulin has the most influence. Every time you eat, regardless of how small the meal or snack is, insulin goes up. Many people think that eating frequently keeps metabolism high, but in reality, it keeps insulin elevated all day long. That constant exposure prevents your body from accessing stored fat for fuel. This is why people who snack all day or eat 5 to 6 small meals struggle with belly fat even when they think they're eating healthy. The key is not to keep insulin elevated, but to allow it to drop low enough between meals so the body can switch into fat burning mode. When insulin is low, the body taps into its stored fat, converting it into ketones, which become a cleaner, more efficient energy source. The types of food you eat determine how high your insulin rises. Refined carbohydrates, sugars, bread, pasta, rice, and even certain fruits cause sharp spikes in insulin. These foods flood your bloodstream with glucose, forcing your body to release large amounts of insulin to manage it. Over time, your cells become less sensitive to insulin, and your pancreas compensates by producing even more. This condition, called insulin resistance, is the main reason belly fat becomes stubborn and nearly impossible to lose. In contrast, foods like healthy fats, moderate proteins, and low-carb vegetables keep insulin levels stable. Eating more of these foods allows your body to stay in a fat-burning state for longer periods. There's another layer to this. Insulin is also affected by stress, sleep, and even the timing of your meals. When you're under chronic stress, your body releases cortisol, which increases blood sugar and triggers more insulin production. The same happens when you don't get enough sleep. Your body becomes insulin resistant, and you crave more sugary foods to boost your energy. These hormonal imbalances make it easy to gain belly fat, even if your calorie intake hasn't changed. So it's not just about food, it's about lifestyle. Managing stress, getting enough sleep, and eating in a pattern that allows insulin to stay low are just as important as choosing the right foods. Intermittent fasting is one of the most powerful tools for lowering insulin naturally. When you go longer periods without eating, say 16 hours of fasting followed by an 8-hour eating window, your insulin levels drop and your body is forced to burn stored fat for fuel. This process not only reduces belly fat, but also improves insulin sensitivity over time. It's not starvation, it's strategic timing. Your body adapts by becoming more efficient at using fat for energy, and hunger levels decrease because your blood sugar becomes more stable. Combining intermittent fasting with a low-carb, high-fat diet accelerates this effect even more. Foods like eggs, avocados, olive oil, and leafy greens provide nutrients without spiking insulin, keeping your metabolism steady and balanced. Another common mistake people make is trying to exercise a high insulin diet. Exercise is important for health, but if your insulin is constantly elevated, you won't burn much fat no matter how much you work out. You might build muscle and improve endurance, but fat loss will stall. This is why many people who spend hours at the gym still struggle with stubborn belly fat. They're exercising in a high insulin state. To get real results, insulin has to come down first. Once that happens, your body can start using stored fat as fuel even during rest. When insulin levels are finally under control, something amazing happens. Your energy stabilizes, cravings disappear, and fat loss becomes effortless. You're no longer driven by hunger every few hours because your body has learned to access stored energy. This is the state of metabolic flexibility, being able to switch between burning glucose and fat depending on what's available. It's the ideal state for long-term health and sustained fat loss. High insulin blocks this flexibility while low insulin restores it. The truth is that insulin is the real boss of your metabolism. It determines whether your body stores energy or burns it. The secret to losing belly fat isn't cutting calories or exercising harder. It's controlling insulin through diet, fasting, and lifestyle habits. When you learn to lower insulin naturally, fat burning becomes automatic, energy increases, and your body finally starts working the way it was designed to. Cortisol is one of the most overlooked yet powerful hormones when it comes to belly fat, and most people don't realize how much their stress levels directly affect their waistline. Cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands, and its main job is to help your body handle stress. In small amounts, it's essential. It gives you energy, helps you wake up in the morning, and allows you to respond to challenges. But when cortisol is elevated for long periods of time, it becomes destructive, especially to your metabolism. Chronic stress, whether physical, emotional, or environmental, keeps cortisol high, and high cortisol triggers fat storage, particularly around the midsection. This is why even people who eat healthy and exercise can still struggle with stubborn belly fat if their stress is not under control. When cortisol rises, it increases blood sugar to give your body immediate energy for a fight or flight response. This was useful for survival in ancient times when stress meant danger and physical action was required. But today, stress looks different. It comes from constant notifications, work deadlines, lack of sleep, relationship tension, or even worrying about health. The problem is that even though the source of stress is mental or emotional, the body responds as if it needs physical fuel. The rise in blood sugar from stress leads to a rise in insulin, the fat-storing hormone. So when cortisol and insulin are both elevated, fat gets deposited right in the belly area, where there are more cortisol receptors than anywhere else in the body. This is why belly fat is the hallmark of chronic stress. Over time, this constant hormonal activation creates a dangerous cycle. The more belly fat you accumulate, the more inflammation your body produces. That inflammation increases insulin resistance, which forces the body to release even more insulin and cortisol. This combination makes it nearly impossible to burn fat. Many people don't realize that their constant tiredness, irritability, or cravings for sweets are signs of this hormonal loop. The body is trying to cope with the stress by demanding quick energy sources like sugar or caffeine, which give temporary relief but make the underlying issue worse. Another hidden source of cortisol overload is overtraining. While moderate exercise lowers stress, too much intense exercise without proper recovery spikes cortisol further. People who push themselves to work out harder and longer, thinking it will burn belly fat, often end up doing the opposite. Their cortisol stays high, which prevents fat loss and leads to muscle breakdown. Exercise should be balanced with recovery, rest, and proper nutrition to keep cortisol in check. Walking, yoga, stretching, and deep breathing are often more beneficial for fat loss in stressed individuals than high-intensity workouts. Sleep plays a major role as well. When you don't sleep enough, cortisol rises dramatically the next day. This not only increases appetite, but also shifts cravings toward sugary and carb-rich foods. Poor sleep also lowers growth hormone, one of the body's most powerful fat-burning hormones. So, the combination of high cortisol and low growth hormone creates the perfect environment for belly fat to accumulate. Fixing sleep patterns by going to bed at a consistent time, avoiding screens before bed, and creating a calm sleep environment can have a huge impact on lowering cortisol and improving fat metabolism. Nutrients are another critical piece. The adrenal glands need certain nutrients to function properly, especially B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, and potassium. When these nutrients are depleted, your body has a harder time managing stress, and cortisol remains elevated. Processed foods, caffeine, and alcohol all deplete these nutrients, which means the modern diet often worsens adrenal fatigue. Eating real, whole foods, especially leafy greens, avocados, nuts, eggs, and fish, provides the building blocks the body needs to balance cortisol naturally. Mental stress management is equally important. Cortisol doesn't just rise from physical stress, it also increases from negative thinking, worry, and unresolved emotions. Practices like mindfulness, gratitude, and spending time in nature all have measurable effects on lowering cortisol. Even 5 minutes of deep breathing or meditation can lower stress hormones significantly. The goal is not to eliminate stress completely, which isn't possible, but to improve how your body and mind respond to it. When you learn to shift your stress response, cortisol becomes balanced, and belly fat begins to reduce naturally. It's also worth noting that prolonged high cortisol levels can interfere with thyroid function. The thyroid controls metabolism, and when cortisol is elevated, the thyroid slows down to conserve energy. This leads to symptoms like fatigue, cold hands and feet, and difficulty losing weight. By reducing stress and supporting adrenal health, you indirectly help the thyroid function better, which in turn boosts metabolism and accelerates fat loss. Cortisol is not the enemy, it's only a problem when it stays elevated chronically. The modern lifestyle keeps most people in a constant state of low-grade stress, which means cortisol never has a chance to normalize. By addressing stress, sleep, nutrient intake, and exercise balance, you create the hormonal environment where the body can finally let go of belly fat. When cortisol and insulin drop, the body naturally switches back to burning fat, energy stabilizes, and that persistent belly fat begins to disappear without extreme dieting or endless workouts. Sleep is one of the most underrated factors when it comes to fat loss, especially belly fat, yet it has one of the strongest hormonal impacts on your body. Many people try to lose weight by dieting or exercising more, but they completely overlook how poor sleep sabotages every effort. When you don't sleep well, the balance of your hormones is disrupted. Two key hormones, cortisol and growth hormone, are especially affected and both directly influence belly fat storage. Cortisol, the stress hormone, increases when sleep is lacking, while growth hormone, the powerful fat-burning and repair hormone, decreases. This hormonal shift creates the perfect environment for fat to accumulate, especially around the midsection. You might think you can make up for lost sleep by eating cleaner or exercising harder, but it doesn't work that way because your body's recovery and metabolic rhythm depend heavily on adequate sleep. During deep sleep, your body repairs itself, detoxifies, and releases growth hormone, which promotes fat burning, muscle repair, and cellular rejuvenation. Growth hormone is at its peak during the early part of the night when you're in deep, slow wave sleep. But if you stay up late scrolling on your phone, working, or watching TV, you miss that critical window. Without enough growth hormone, your body can't efficiently burn fat or repair damaged tissue. At the same time, lack of sleep elevates cortisol levels, which not only triggers fat storage, but also increases appetite and cravings, particularly for sugary and high-carb foods. This is why people who sleep less than 6 hours a night often feel hungrier and find themselves snacking more the next day. It's not just a matter of willpower, It's a biological response to hormone imbalance. Another major consequence of poor sleep is the effect it has on insulin sensitivity. When you're sleep deprived, your cells become resistant to insulin, meaning your body has to produce more of it to keep blood sugar levels stable. This keeps insulin high, which, as we know, prevents fat burning. Studies have shown that even one night of bad sleep can make a healthy person temporarily insulin resistant. Over time, this pattern can lead to chronic insulin resistance, belly fat accumulation, and even metabolic disorders. So while people often think calories and exercise are the key to losing weight, their nightly sleep habits may be quietly undoing all their progress. Sleep deprivation also affects the hunger hormones leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that tells your brain you're full, while ghrelin signals hunger. When you don't sleep enough, leptin decreases and ghrelin increases, making you feel hungrier even when your body doesn't need food. This explains why after a poor night's sleep, you crave quick energy foods like sugar, caffeine, and refined carbs. These foods temporarily raise your energy but spike your insulin, causing further fat storage and energy crashes. This vicious cycle can continue for years if sleep is not prioritized. The quality of sleep matters just as much as the quantity. Going to bed at random times, staying up late under artificial light, or sleeping in a noisy environment interferes with melatonin production. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It also acts as a powerful antioxidant that helps regulate other hormones, including insulin and cortisol. When melatonin levels are low, your body's internal clock becomes misaligned, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. Over time, this disrupts your circadian rhythm, the natural cycle that governs metabolism, digestion, and hormone release. A consistent sleep schedule, avoiding bright screens before bed, and keeping your room dark and cool can dramatically improve melatonin levels and help the body restore hormonal balance. Another overlooked factor is that poor sleep increases inflammation. Lack of rest stresses the body at a cellular level, triggering inflammatory pathways that interfere with metabolism and fat burning. Inflammation also leads to water retention, bloating, and oxidative stress, which further slow down the body's ability to lose fat. On the other hand, when you sleep deeply, inflammation drops, detoxification improves, and your body becomes more efficient at using fat for energy. This is one reason people who start prioritizing good sleep often notice their belly shrinking without changing their diet much. To support deep sleep, certain nutrients are essential. Magnesium, potassium, calcium, and B vitamins all play roles in relaxing the nervous system and regulating stress hormones. Leafy greens, avocados, nuts, and seeds are excellent sources of these nutrients. Avoiding stimulants like caffeine or alcohol before bed also helps, as both interfere with the quality of deep sleep. Caffeine keeps cortisol elevated, while alcohol disrupts REM sleep, the stage needed for mental and hormonal recovery. Hydration is important too, but drinking too much water right before bed can cause interruptions in sleep, so timing matters. Sleep is your body's natural fat burning and healing state. When you sleep well, cortisol drops, growth hormone rises, and your metabolism resets. The body becomes more sensitive to insulin, hunger hormones stabilize, and energy levels improve. Poor sleep does the opposite. It raises stress hormones, increases cravings, and locks the body in a fat storing mode. If you're doing everything right with diet and exercise, but still not seeing results, your missing link might be sleep. Rest is not a luxury, it's a biological necessity for burning fat, balancing hormones, and maintaining long-term health. The type of food you eat determines your body's hormonal response far more than the number of calories you consume. And that's why people who focus only on calorie counting often get stuck. 2 meals can have the same number of calories, but create completely different effects inside the body depending on what those calories come from. For example, if you eat 500 calories from bread, pasta, or sugar, you trigger a strong insulin response that promotes fat storage. But if you eat 500 calories from eggs, avocado, and vegetables, insulin stays low and your body can continue burning fat for energy. This shows that it's not just the energy content of food that matters, it's the hormonal impact. Insulin, cortisol, leptin, and other hormones all respond to what you eat, not how much you eat, and that's what ultimately determines whether your body stores or burns fat. When you eat foods high in refined carbohydrates or sugars, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. The pancreas then releases insulin to remove excess sugar from the bloodstream and move it into cells. Any sugar that isn't used for immediate energy gets stored as fat, especially around the belly. The problem is that insulin not only stores fat but also blocks fat burning. As long as insulin is elevated, your body cannot tap into stored fat for fuel. So even if you eat a low-calorie diet filled with high-carb foods, you may not lose much fat because insulin prevents your body from accessing its own energy reserves. On the other hand, foods that are low in carbs but rich in nutrients, such as healthy fats, proteins, and fibrous vegetables, cause little to no insulin response, allowing fat burning to continue throughout the day. The glycemic load of a meal plays a big role in how your body handles energy. High glycemic foods like white rice, sugary drinks, and processed snacks spike blood sugar quickly and create a surge in insulin. Low glycemic foods like leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and lean proteins release energy slowly and keep blood sugar stable. When blood sugar is stable, you feel satisfied longer, cravings disappear, and energy levels stay consistent. This stability allows your body to shift toward burning fat rather than depending on sugar for energy. Over time, consistently choosing low glycemic, nutrient-dense foods helps reset your metabolism and reverse insulin resistance, which is the root cause of most stubborn belly fat. Another key factor is the presence of nutrients that support hormonal balance. The liver plays a major role in regulating fat metabolism and detoxifying excess hormones, and it depends on nutrients like choline, B vitamins, and potassium. When your diet lacks these, the liver becomes sluggish, making it harder to break down fat efficiently. That's why foods like eggs, cruciferous vegetables, and avocados are so important. They help the liver process fat and maintain hormonal balance. In contrast, processed foods high in trans fats, additives, and refined oils overload the liver, increase inflammation, and worsen insulin resistance. Over time, this leads to fat accumulation in the liver and belly area, even if your total calorie intake isn't very high. The combination of macronutrients in your meal also determines your hormonal outcome. A high-carb meal eaten alone spikes insulin dramatically, but when carbs are paired with healthy fats and protein, the release of sugar into the bloodstream slows down, resulting in a lower insulin response. This is why balanced meals are far more effective for fat loss than carb-heavy or low-fat meals. Healthy fats such as olive oil, coconut oil, butter, and nuts not only keep you full, but also promote the release of satiety hormones like leptin and peptide YY, which naturally suppress appetite. In contrast, refined carbs and sugars cause rapid hunger cycles, making you crave food more often and leading to overeating. People often believe that eating fat makes them fat, but that's a misunderstanding. Dietary fat doesn't spike insulin, and it helps stabilize blood sugar and energy. When you replace carbohydrates with healthy fats, your body shifts from burning sugar to burning fat as its primary fuel source. This metabolic shift, called ketosis, creates a stable energy environment and dramatically reduces cravings. Many people find they can go longer between meals, maintain mental clarity, and lose belly fat effortlessly once their body adapts to using fat for energy. This process happens naturally when insulin levels are kept low through smart food choices, not by starving or counting calories. Another factor often ignored is food timing. Even healthy foods eaten too frequently can keep insulin elevated. Grazing all day, drinking smoothies between meals, or constantly snacking prevents the body from ever entering a fat-burning state. The best approach is to eat 2 or 3 nutrient-dense meals and avoid snacking in between, allowing insulin levels to drop. Pairing this with intermittent fasting amplifies results even more because it extends the period when insulin stays low and fat burning remains active. Ultimately, the quality of your food determines your body composition far more than the quantity. When you eat real, whole foods rich in nutrients, fiber, and healthy fats, your hormones stabilize, cravings disappear, and your metabolism becomes efficient. Processed high-carb foods do the opposite. They spike insulin, increase inflammation, and lock fat in place. Shifting your focus from counting calories to controlling insulin through food quality changes everything. Once your hormones are balanced and your body's fuel system is working properly, fat loss happens naturally and sustainably without restriction or constant hunger. When belly fat becomes stubborn and refuses to go away no matter how much you diet or exercise, it's usually a sign of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a condition where your cells no longer respond properly to insulin, the hormone that helps move glucose from your blood into your cells for energy. In the beginning, your body compensates by producing more insulin to keep blood sugar levels normal. But over time, those higher insulin levels lock your body into a constant fat storing state. Insulin resistance doesn't just affect blood sugar, it affects nearly every aspect of metabolism. It makes it harder to burn fat, increases hunger and cravings, and promotes inflammation, especially around the belly area. The good news is that insulin resistance can be reversed naturally by fixing your diet, eating schedule, and lifestyle. When insulin is constantly high, your body can't access stored fat for energy. You might feel tired, hungry, and dependent on frequent meals or snacks to maintain energy throughout the day. This happens because your body has become stuck in sugar-burning mode. It's like being trapped on a roller coaster of spikes and crashes in blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops, you crave more food, particularly carbohydrates, which causes another insulin spike. Over time, this pattern worsens insulin resistance, leading to more fat storage around the midsection. This is why so many people who try low-calorie diets or eat small meals throughout the day end up feeling drained and frustrated. They never give insulin a chance to come down long enough for fat burning to begin. The key to reversing insulin resistance is to lower insulin naturally and allow your body to regain sensitivity to it. The first and most effective step is to reduce the amount of carbohydrates you eat, especially refined ones. Foods like bread, pasta, rice, cereal, and sweets are the biggest triggers for insulin spikes. When you cut them out and replace them with healthy fats and moderate protein, your insulin levels begin to stabilize. This shift forces your body to start using fat as its main fuel source instead of glucose. It's not about starving yourself, it's about changing your fuel system. When your body switches from sugar burning to fat burning, you feel more energetic. Your hunger normalizes and belly fat begins to shrink naturally. Intermittent fasting is another powerful strategy for improving insulin sensitivity. Fasting doesn't mean going without food for days. It simply means creating longer gaps between meals so insulin has time to drop. For example, a 16-8 fasting schedule where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window gives your body enough time to lower insulin and start tapping into stored fat. As you adapt, you'll notice you can go longer without feeling hungry because your body becomes efficient at burning fat for fuel. Over time, this helps heal insulin resistance and promotes stable energy throughout the day. It's one of the simplest yet most effective methods to unlock fat loss and metabolic health without extreme dieting. Another important aspect of fixing insulin resistance is supporting the liver, because the liver plays a central role in processing insulin. When the liver becomes fatty or sluggish, often due to a high-carb diet, it can't regulate blood sugar effectively, which worsens insulin resistance. Eating foods that support liver function, such as leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, lemon water, and apple cider vinegar, can help detoxify and improve liver performance. These foods also provide nutrients like potassium, magnesium, and choline, which assist in balancing insulin and glucose levels. A healthy liver means better insulin regulation and more efficient fat burning. Stress also plays a big role in insulin resistance. When cortisol, the stress hormone, is chronically elevated, it raises blood sugar levels, prompting your pancreas to release more insulin. This creates a double problem: high insulin from diet and high insulin from stress. Learning to manage stress through deep breathing, meditation, walking, or spending time outdoors helps lower cortisol and keeps insulin stable. Similarly, sleep is critical. Poor sleep increases both cortisol and insulin, making insulin resistance worse. Getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night helps reset your hormones and improves insulin sensitivity. Exercise helps too, but not in the way most people think. Long, intense cardio sessions can actually raise cortisol in some people, making things worse. Short bursts of high-intensity training or resistance exercises are more effective for improving insulin sensitivity. When you move your muscles, you help glucose move into the cells without needing as much insulin. This reduces insulin levels over time and helps your body become more efficient at using energy. As insulin resistance improves, everything starts to work better. Your energy stabilizes, cravings disappear, and your body finally begins to burn fat again. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to snack constantly because your blood sugar is balanced. Belly fat starts to melt away naturally because your body can now access it for energy. The process takes time, but every meal, every night of good sleep, and every stress-reducing habit helps move you closer to balance. Fixing insulin resistance is the key to long-term fat loss and health. It's not about counting calories or punishing yourself with exercise. It's about creating the right hormonal environment for your body to function properly. When you lower insulin through diet, fasting, stress control, and nutrient support, your body naturally shifts into fat-burning mode. This is how real, lasting belly fat loss happens, by working with your hormones, not against them.